Well, everybody, it's Wes McDonald and Kenneth Edmonds. How you doing, Ken?
I am fine. How are you doing today, Wes?
I got no complaints at all. And as I haven't spoken with all of our viewers since last week, wanted to hope that everyone had a fantastic long weekend and welcome back to the work week. So pretty excited today, Ken. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, not necessarily just related to flat rate, but having some kind of managed print specialist, right? And certainly the conversation that we're going to have today is, well, is flat rate really that much different from traditional managed print? Do we really need to have, a specialist? And, certainly what I would encourage everyone to do is leave your comments and questions as you're watching the episode today. So do you think that we should have flat rate specialists as we move our programs forward? Or do you think that it's just too much like traditional managed print? So before we get on to that, so Ken, how was your long weekend? What did you do?
Oh, what I always do, I work. That's all I'm good for.
Can confirm, because we had a call on Monday, which I was quite surprised by.
Yeah, I worked Monday, had a call, but between the garden and working on website and there's just so many things associated with building out our flat rate program and things. We built in fact, actually that's live now publicly. We have flatrate.world is up and people can take a look at it if they want. In the background, we're still building out a lot of infrastructure. And so there were lots of things. And then I only have a small garden. It's about 3,000 square feet that requires a little bit of work with a hoe and we're in weed season already. So.
Yeah, mine's a lot smaller. But as you mentioned, the site is live. And to let everyone know that what we're doing with Flat Rate Certified is we're actually driving this towards end users for them to be able to go to the site and look up and see what the Flat Rate Certified program really means. So when an end user goes to this page, they'll get an understanding of what Flat Rate Certified is, what the Flat Rate Academy does with dealers, how we help out, and what some of the main benefits are of the flat rate program. So obviously for those that are familiar with what we do, the no more counting aspect, counting sucks, so let's stop counting. Alignment galore, making sure that both the dealer and the customer actually finally have each other's best interest at heart. And the final one is that predictable spend, Ken. And this is one that, people just absolutely love, right? Is to be able to get that consistent invoice on a monthly basis and understand exactly what they're going to be spending for their print, right? And that's it. So we encourage people to ask for Flat Rate Certified, and then they can get in touch with us by visiting the website or emailing us. And, Ken, what gets me excited about finally having this live and out there in the world now is that for those that are doing flat rate, that there is a place to send those customers to give them some validation that this is indeed a different thing than just traditional cost per page.
Yep. And there's so many more exciting things coming in the background. We're going to do what we can on our side to make the public aware of flat rate and flat rate certified dealers so that we can help the dealers that work with us and that get certified either through a partnership or through completing the training course, or they just come in and take the test. In all of those ways, we're going to make people want to find flat rate certified dealers.
Yeah, that is a question I've had actually come to me from a few dealers that, have launched their flat rate programs and said, do we, have to use you guys to be able to get flat rate certified? And the answer is no. Like if you have a flat rate program, and as long as you meet what we consider to be the bare minimum standards of the offering to make sure that it's fair for the customers, all you have to do is fill out basically a test, a certification test. And as long as you pass that, you get to be flat rate certified. You get to be able to use that stuff. So make sure you reach out to Ken and I. I know that after our show last week, I had two dealers actually, reach out based on that, right? So we're here, whether you need help with your flat rate program or whether you've got one and you just want to do a better job of bolstering it and getting in the marketplace, definitely get in touch with us. Now, for those that missed the 10-day challenge, well, sorry for you. It was pretty exciting, eh, Ken? I can't believe the number of people from around the world that we had that joined the challenge. I think at the end of the day, we had over 140 registered, but that's just registered because from other people that logged in to watch the show, one day I noticed that it was over 400, another day was over 240. So, people are definitely paying attention to this flat rate phenomena, which has really caught on fire in 2021. Now, if you want to get access to that challenge, you still can. And Ken, I don't think we have the link in here today, but certainly if you message us, either via email or just find us on LinkedIn, then we'll help you to get access to that 10-day challenge. And if you mention flat rate free to either one of us, then we'll make sure you get access to that content for free. And we couldn't do that without the generosity of our, affiliates, the people that are helping us to drive this in the marketplace. Because Ken, as we talk about all the time, flat rate is not just a billing model. Flat rate is an ecosystem. Flat rate is an offering for customers that is very different. And everyone that you're looking at on this screen here has contributed to this model in some way or another. And so if it's sales training or if it's systems to be able to do cost assurity, if it's a business process automation system that allows you to do both managed print and managed IT, if it's a new kind of DCA that's self-healing, for when you're getting those meters for the back end stuff, the 20, if you're looking at diversifying your services, Pulsar 360, if you're looking to do telephony and other kinds of unified communication. And Great America Financial Services, obviously, you've got to have some way to be able to lease a flat rate program, which is very different from cost per page. And our friends at Cartos, they have a phenomenal system for being able to do assessments. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today, because obviously what we're going to talk about with having a specialist or not having a specialist is very important, right? So I don't know. What do you think, Ken, specialist or no? Is flat rate just a billing mechanism, or are we doing some different things here?
Oh, we're doing a lot of things different. And as I would say this is that as dealers' flat rate problems grow, having somebody that really understands all of how to put it all together is going to be pretty important. And not only understanding how to put it together, but how to communicate that value to the customer. Because, are you going to tell you, I'll just set it up. You going to tell your purple cow story?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, that's it. The value proposition, as we've listed on the website, we deliberately kept it very simple because the purple cow theory, if you've ever seen Seth Godin's Purple Cow, it's really the only thing in the story that sets the purple cow apart from all the rest of them is the fact that it's purple, right? It's just the color, but it's significant enough and noticeable enough that people really pay attention to that. And I guarantee you, Ken, if anyone watching this ever goes for a drive with their family on a road trip and sees a purple cow in the field, you think they're going to stop? Think they're going to have a look, right? So that's one of these.
Facebook.
Yeah, that's one of these things with the value proposition. So I'm with you, Ken. I think that initially, especially, and I chewed long and hard on this, right? And I'll give a little background first on my experience being a specialist in the industry. So when I started in the managed print services space, I actually came from the technology world. I was working for a company providing data center services and high-speed internet services for large companies. And back in those days, that technology was expensive. You really had to know how things worked to be able to get that across to customer, because it was brand new, right? Like when you talked about a T1 connection, 1.54 megs per second, and where that had to go, where the actual access points were. People had no idea, like, what's a web page? Like, I actually started selling single page websites, which did only one thing. And that was posted information, very much like you'd see in the yellow pages with a few pretty pictures. That was it. Those early web pages, you couldn't even link to anything. Couldn't link to email, couldn't do anything. They were just literally a static page. And how far we've come. But I'll tell you what, the training that I experienced from the company that I worked for at the time was second to none. We literally spent a week in technical training. And, with your background, Ken, I know that, because you've done technical services for so many years and trained so many people on it, right? That as a sales rep, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? A week of training on technical stuff? Why do I have to know what SNMP is or TCP/IP, right? Why do I have to know the difference, between an ISDN line versus a T1 fiber line, right? And it soon became apparently clear because it was so new at the time that there was no way to get it across to the customer what it actually, they did, what the differences were, right? And you had to come up with all kinds of weird solutions. So, Ken, have you ever seen Cirque du Soleil?
Yes, I've seen Cirque du Soleil.
Okay. And many people may not realize this because they've gotten so big in Vegas and other parts of the world. But that was actually a Canadian touring company initially. That's how they started. And what they used to do was they would travel around the country. They literally put up their tent, right? They would do their human, circus, and they needed connectivity. So at that time, we actually had to build a solution for them from scratch for roaming ISDN. It became a standard soon thereafter, but to be able to take your internet with you. And you got to remember at that time, right? That the highest speeds you could get 128K per second, or if you bonded to ISDN lines, then you get 256K, whopping 256K, right? But it allowed them to, be able to communicate while they were traveling around the country. So we're experiencing the same thing, I think, within the managed print world when it comes to flat rate, that there is enough new stuff that has to be done that I would certainly recommend, maybe not a dedicated specialist, but certainly would recommend having somebody on board whose responsibility becomes that specialist. They'll work with the other sales reps. They'll work on those deals for deal crafting, et cetera, right? So maybe what I'll do now is I'll just kind of look at, what a profile for that would look like, right? So if I was to look for a flat rate specialist, notice I created a new acronym there, Ken. So FRS.
Very cool.
Because we don't have enough acronyms in the managed print world, but there we go. So just let me pull up the profile here. So some of the things that you probably want to be looking for, I'm going to put this full screen so our viewers can see this, hopefully. There we go. So some of the characteristics, the first one I would say is that they have to be data savvy. And I don't consider myself a smart person. I didn't do very well in math when I was in high school. Terrified me. But one of the things I am really good at is looking at data either through spreadsheets or other tool sets and being able to tell the story of that data, right? So that's an aptitude which is not everyone has or loves, quite frankly, right? So when I was doing assessment-based selling in the traditional managed print world, go to locations, do walkthroughs on the floor, get the information off the devices. That first stage was just gathering. And then afterwards coming up with these future state solutions, right? And that was all data-driven. So what kinds of things are people doing? What kinds of things are they printing? Why are they printing them, right? How reliable are, certain devices that they have on the network, and how many local devices do they have, et cetera? And what impact is that having on their costs, right? So it is certainly one of those things that data, both for the user level stuff and the device level stuff, I would highly recommend that you figure out who that person is, right? So any ideas, Ken, and maybe suggestions for those kind of personality traits?
Well, you kind of actually have it over in the bottom right too, but you want somebody that likes to dig in and look for things.
Yes.
It's interesting that I had a class yesterday. One of the things I talked about with the students was that what you're looking for are the things that don't fit the norm. You want to try to find out, try to understand it. And so your flat rate specialist is going to need to be able to look at the data and think about it from the perspective of, okay, so how can I improve their situation? How can we configure the data? What kind of rules? I'm kind of getting ahead on your slide a little bit, but those are.
Oh, that's all right. Oops.
Those are all things that I think about in the profile.
Yeah, no, I certainly do as well, and I think it's okay to jump to that one, right? So when we're looking for those characteristics, a curious mind is very important, right? And never make assumptions. I always love sharing this one story about assumptions and how they can get in the way of winning or losing a deal, right? And I was working with a specialist, like an actual sales support specialist at a company, which I won't name to keep the innocent nameless. But when we walked in, that specialist looked around, and because there were so many locally connected printers, they immediately told the people there, they said, "Oh God, we're going to fix this. You have way too many local devices, right? Like, never seen so many local devices. But don't worry, we're here. We're gonna save the day." Not knowing that as we started to ask more questions, right? Here's the curiosity. The first thing that I would do is ask why they have so many local printers. And you know why they had so many local printers? Because they had an application which required a serial connection on the back of the device. Remember those, Ken? like, you know, like a
I
direct.
remember having to build out a Unix wiring for serial printers all over my company because the application only ran on Unix and only printed to serial printers.
Well, here we go. We got somebody, a Facebook user. We can't see who that is because in the Facebook group, proclivity towards business acumen. Yes, absolutely. That's another great ad. And what we're trying to solve with any assessment-based selling approach is a business problem, right? So if it's a traditional cost per page deal that is being done through an assessment by doing the floor walk and trying to figure out what they're doing, um, those things are business problems that they have to figure out. So they're not trying to say that my device is better than their device. What they're trying to say is, here's the problems that you have, these business problems, and we're going to help you solve them, right? And you can only do that. So you've got to have that, proclivity, which is a great word, by the way. Thanks for using that, towards business acumen, because you're going to be working with senior leaders. That's one of the things in my own career, Ken, that has helped me enormously, is actually working at the C level to figure out, what kind of problems they're having, right? And one of the questions that I used to ask, which used to terrify sales reps that I worked with in the early days, was, what are your top 3 priorities for this year, right? Because if I don't fit into one of those, then there's no point doing the assessment, right? So if you have savings initiatives, what's your floor? And if they say, well, we got 3 projects that we're working on, and the floor is $100,000 in savings for the lowest one. We'll say, well, I can tell you right now, in this managed print thing, I'm not going to be able to do that for you. So, to clear those things out, right? Because that's the business acumen, is to really get to the heart of, whether or not they can actually move forward or have any proclivity to, right? So thanks for that. Oh, there he is. It's our buddy Greg. Hey, Greg, how are you, man? Yes, got to have business acumen. So, and that's, the case for managed print specialists throughout the years, whether they're doing cost per page or flat rate, right? So thanks, Greg. That was probably you on Facebook as well. And I love that you came in and LinkedIn to make sure we could give you a shout out. So Greg is one of those people, if I don't know how you couldn't know Greg, but he's one of those people that has always had a solutions driven mind. And I've had the pleasure of working with him, throughout the years and seeing him work in the industry. And, certainly you've got a lot of business acumen yourself, my friend. So the other thing that we do have there is to be software savvy. So when you're doing an assessment, so if you're actually working with, a software solution to be able to run those assessments, they take a lot of learning. And Ken, I don't know if you know this, but when I was doing managed print assessments using tools-based stuff, it was so hard to learn that I quickly figured out I could make a living for 4 years training people on how to use those platforms, right?
Oh,
And
exactly.
because it does take a certain amount of software savviness, and again, maybe that curiosity, and again, that data-driven, kind of personality to be able to use that and to enjoy it. I used to love assessments. I used to love doing the work. And that's really important, but certainly a proclivity to software is really, key. And that doesn't change with flat rate. It only accelerates, right? Because as we've mentioned before, we're going to be looking not just at the device data, but at the user level data. What kinds of things are they printing? How much waste print is there? How secure is their print infrastructure? And if we put secure release in, what kind of changes is that going to make to their print behavior, right? So you've really got to have an understanding of how the software works, not just the assessment software, but the user-based platform you install to be able to get those metrics and, and those numbers, right? So really, really important. The other one that I have there is, and I'll just say on the DCA side there, right? So, certainly if you look at predictive insights and the new tool sets that they have, much simpler to install than how they were in the old days. But when I started again as an MPS specialist, I used to install all my own DCAs. I learned how to do that in a hurry because then when I was at the customer location at a meeting, I could get it installed right then and there, right? So, you know, it's not that it's that hard. You just have to be willing to put in the time. I would say another thing, even just a good example today, Ken, like we're doing this live stream, right? And this is software and it is a new platform. And we had to be very curious to figure out how to do this for our 10-day challenge and now these weekly live streams, right? And I know I was mystified before, I kind of looked at the platform, but here we are. The other thing I will say is that they have to be people savvy. And the one thing I've noticed about any good assessment specialist is I always felt that there was a level of trust with that person right out of the gate, right? That the minute I shook hands with that person, the first words out of their mouth gave me a sense that I could trust them. And that's one of those things that is certainly, I would say, trainable, but it is more inherent, right? So you either have that or you don't. The other part is influential. And when I say influential, I don't mean like a Hollywood star or anything like that. What I mean is that they should have enough curiosity. They should have enough expertise to be able to get people to buy into what they're doing, right? And Jay McBain actually puts out a list every few years. It's the top 100 most influential people that are in the managed technology space. And he calls them super connectors, right? And by super connectors, these are people, they could be the business owner. They could be somebody who's working in the service department. They could be a sales rep. But these are people that have a natural instinct to be very social and to share things that benefit not just them, but the people that they're working with, right? These super connectors. So that's really critical to make sure that, whoever is actually becomes your specialist should actually genuinely care and want to fix some business problems, right? So I call that side door selling, right? What's the expression? Love what you do and the money will take care of itself, right? And that becomes really important with a specialist, right?
Yeah, I was going to add in there, I think the key, and you kind of touched on this, is they have to like to help people and help companies. That has to be their focus, and that shows up. So when you talk to somebody, you go on the car lot and the sales rep, he starts talking to you about what you like and what interests you, you start to build a connection with him. If the first thing out of his mouth is, hey, you want to buy that? That's not going to work. So if you can't walk in and say, hey, I'm going to fix all of your problems. We walk in and we say, hey, listen, I love helping people solve their problems. What are your problems? And I don't know if I can solve them yet or not. Until I know what your problems are, I can't even begin to talk about some kind of solution because I have to understand what it is that you need. Now, once I do that, I might have something that will help you. If I don't, I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah, it's very true. And, when I was an MPS specialist, I would often get people coming to me asking if I knew any other MPS specialists that they could hire. And the great thing about specialists is they're rare and unusual animals, right? So most times I would be able to say, well, not one that's not happy where they are. But what I can do and what Ken and I can help you to do now is to be able to vet your candidates for this position. So if you're thinking of some people for a flat rate specialist role, we've done this, right? We've actually lived this. So we can help you to actually vet who they are and give you some best practices to make sure you get the right person in that seat. And managed print today, we have far fewer specialists than ever, right, Ken? So this is not a forever thing. Once it becomes kind of the norm and the practice, that you'll get a lot more people in your organization to start doing flat rate. But initially, certainly make sure that you have someone who's dedicated to it. And Ken, we've talked about this in the 10-day challenge, that they have to be paid differently too, right? So that when you are thinking about a specialist, you're not paying them on GP on the hardware, because that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to push a bigger box. They're not trying to, say that ours is better than theirs. They're trying to fix business problems. So, you've got to pay them to solve those business problems. And Ken, in our program, and actually maybe I'll move on to that now. For anyone that gets certified, we don't leave any of that as a mystery. So when it comes to being able to figure out who that person is, the specialist, to be able how you pay them, etc., we can help with that. And one of the first things that I recommend is to get certified. So we do have an 8 to 12 week mentorship program. It is jam packed with everything that you're going to need to successfully launch a flat rate program for managed print. Period. The other benefit that you get when you get certified, and by the way, that 8 to 12 week mentorship program, when you get through it, you will be certified, right? Once that's done, if let's say you have your own flat rate program, then we can review and give you advice on that program and help you to get certified. So if there are holes in your program, if there are things that you didn't consider, maybe if you're not having the success that you hoped you would be having, then let us review your existing program and let us share some advice on how you can make it better. The third thing for anyone that we support, anyone that gets the flat rate certified logo, is ongoing support. And this is going to evolve, Ken, right? When we looked at the 9-step, sort of process that we talked about to get here, one of the things that we talked about is to basically look at what we've done and then flex and revise when we need to, right? So as your program starts to evolve and get better, if you have questions or needs, then our flat rate certified partners will help you with that. The last thing there is the use of the logo. And this is really important. You look at other organizations like CompTIA who had their managed print trust mark, and you look at basically any kind of certification that does take some work to get. It's going to give us something for the marketplace, which is actually going to be genuine and real. And Ken, in the managed print space, we didn't do this early enough, right? When people said they were doing managed print, that could have meant anything. And oftentimes today it still does, right? But I can guarantee you this, if they have a CompTIA managed print trust mark, guess what I know?
They know managed print and how to do it right.
Absolutely, because you don't get the certification. So this is not a rubber stamp. You do have to actually take some testing and stuff, but certainly make sure you get in touch with us to learn, how you can do that, right? As we're getting pretty close to our half hour today, I just want to talk a little bit about our next episode. And this is another question which is quite common that we get all the time. What about overages, right? And this is one of the complaints I hear about people that are trying to sell against flat rate. They say, aha, you're not telling me everything. There's something hiding in there, right? You can't just have overages in an account and not get people to pay for them. And I would wholeheartedly agree. So what we're going to talk about next week is how to handle those so that you still deliver your flat rate program the way that you promised, which is a fixed monthly invoice every month, right? So yeah, it's a great topic, and I can't wait to dive into that one more, next week, right?
Though I do have to say about this is that if you do the first part of this process right, this one's not ever going to be or should never be a real problem, because we build the program so you avoid that issue.
I was going to say, anyone that goes through our mentorship program, it becomes very clear early on how to deal with overages. But again, we talked about those super connectors and doing what we can to help the industry. Tune in next week to be able to learn how to do that for yourself if you're building your own program. So Ken, I want to thank you for getting together again. I love being able to connect with you on a weekly basis to share this stuff with our friends in the Office Equipment channel and the managed print world.
Yep, I enjoyed it too. It's so much fun.
All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. And remember, get in touch with us and learn how you can get your own flat rate certified program. Take care, everybody. See you next week.